Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Of course, it's the Friday edition of the program. And today we're taking a look at Nigeria's creative industry and national development. And we do know that the Nigerian creative industry is a very broad one at the moment, talking about fashion, music, some literary works, everything really that has to do with creativity. And that industry is gradually becoming a force to reckon with. And at the moment, it is also one of the drivers of national development in Nigeria. And every serious government that is particular about her national development will, of course, devote all attention or some meaningful attention to the creative industry. But what are some of those things that we're doing right at the moment, and where are we also receiving knocks in the industry, and how can we as a government and as a country continue to develop this industry so that we would also be at par with other nations who are also big in the creative industry? We have a friend of the house in the studio this morning, although he's in Abuja, but anytime he's in Lagos, he always makes it a point of duty to visit us here. We're glad this morning again to welcome Dr. Shaibu Hussain, is the DGCU, Nigerian Film. National Film and Video Censors Board. Thank you, Dr. Shai, for being here on the program.
It's a pleasure to be here
today.
Okay,
we do know that the creative industry is one of the industries that we cannot push aside in Nigeria at the moment, especially if you take a look at the way we are beginning again now to go back to the cinemas with film, and also what our music is doing on the international scene and how we're also topping the chart. You'd agree with me that government is also been not only proactive but also been intentional in according the creative industry the priority. But let's also look at government at the national level, especially through the ministry that is saddled with this responsibility, talking about the Ministry of Tourism. What again are the new things that the ministry is introducing at the moment to push up the many positives of the creative industry?
Thank you for having me, and let me use the opportunity to say happy World Drummers Day to our drummers. They are having the celebration today, April 4th. And then, of course, the theater artists that had their celebration on the 27th. I belong to that family. And then the next the big family that I belong to have their own on the 27th. Okay. Those are the dancers. So they have the World Dance Day on 27th. So congratulations, roundly, and well done. All right, to your question, at the level of the, first of all, let's acknowledge the fact that, like you said in your introduction, government is very deliberate and very intentional about the arts, culture, tourism, and creative industry of this country, which is why Mr. President created a separate ministry. Right. It used to be information and culture, and most of the time information takes the large chunk of attention and not culture. But now we have a full ministry. It's a new ministry. It's never happened before. It used to be an appendage to others, but now it's a full ministry for arts, culture, tourism. So that's one plus for government, and one thing that people will just know that government has an intention, for deliberate intention to promote the arts, to support the arts, and to support the creative industry. Then the second thing is that since she came into office, of course she came with an 8-point agenda, and she has been ticking in some way those agendas. Okay. And one of the very recent win for her was particular for the ministry. Let me just say for the ministry, because it's the ministry.
Teamwork.
For the ministry is the approval they got to set up an infrastructural development organization that will be run by both government and private. What this body will do is to ensure that we have all the infrastructure that we need for the creative industry to thrive, like workspaces, like performance spaces, and so on. I mean, the other day, one of our biggest musicians declared that he was not going to do any concerts in the country. And that's because we don't even have a concert venue, a venue fit for concert. Each time we go to hotels, we go to hotels and all that. And meanwhile, they go abroad and fill up
Yes,
arenas and all that. So this structure that the Honorable Minister has passed to the effect and it has been approved will be that we collaborate with the private sector to ensure that we have performance spaces, we have theaters for theater artists, because each time we talk about cinema, we forget that there's the performing arts aspect too.
Of it.
We have theaters, and all that. And I understand too that part of that too is to make sure that we even have in our universities theater halls, where they will not only teach them, but they can practice.
Also perform.
Yes, perform and all that. So we start from that level and all that. Apart from that, she has been able to secure the funding for the industry, funding from Afri-Exim.
Okay.
For the creative industry, for tourism, for arts and for culture. And the importance of that funding that she got is that, look, we need to develop cultural industries across the country. We go to areas where we have strength, like, for instance, in Niger State, that the Ajia Kwali, the late Kwali, Ladi Kwali, she popularized poetry and all that. You build something for them to develop that, so that we are not only just making those poetry, but we are preparing them for exports so that we can get. Then you go to a place where they have comparative advantage and you build. And presently I'm told that they are building some 5 cultural industries. They have identified areas with strength, including Niger State.
Okay.
I think somewhere in Bichi, there's another place in the east. There's somewhere in Edo State where they do craft and all that. And so they'll be able to do this in quantities that they can export.
Okay.
So there are so many, and then there are so many capacity building initiatives. Because the problem again with the industry is that, yes, we have all this in abundance, but we don't have the skills. The skill sets are not there. Not that we don't have them completely, but we need to build up. We need to upskill as well. And there are so many capacity building initiatives here and there. But I know that the bottom line will be provision of funding. Everybody's looking for some kind of funding. But again, we have argued, even at the level of heads of parastatals we have, that if you give people monies to do productions, where are they going to distribute
those
the work?
productions?
Yes, where is the market? Where is the infrastructure to help in the distribution of? So we're working on making sure that we have those distribution facilities. That's why the last time I was here, I told you that at the level of the board, we are granting some kind of waivers to those who want to set up small outlets, cottage cinemas, in our local governments and the rest. And I just came back from a meeting where a state governor said, look, called all the chairmen to him and said, those are your town halls that you have. Let's convert them.
Okay.
We will get tax, the filmmaker will get something, and then, the associations or something we get from the amount. He just, in fact, he brought out his calculator. And he started calculating.
What will come for the state?
Yeah, he's interested in making sure that thing works. So he called all of them. Those are your community halls that you use for political rallies. Convert them. When you want to do your rally, you can do your rally. But when it's not in use, you use them for theater, you use them for cinema and so on. So these are the kind of ways that we can actually get this multi-billion naira industry, off the ground.
Sorry, Jay, just an addendum to that will be, for all the things that you've, just spoken about now, and looking at Nigeria and the needs to diversify, because again, we are a mono economy. At the moment, we're not exporting, we are only importing. So if all of these things are properly harnessed and put in the right perspective, are they also able, or is it able to make the industry one that will be a money spinner for Nigeria?
Entertainment, creative arts, it's a money spinner already. People are making money from it. But now we want like an organized,
industry, because everybody keeps doing things in their own.
Informal.
Right.
So we want formality. We want to make sure that it's formal. And it runs with the idea of Nigeria everywhere. We must get our arts and craft everywhere. We are already, our musicians, our Afrobeat artists are everywhere indeed, but we must organize, we won't make it so formal that we can take these crafts for export and get the needed revenue, attention and revenue back to the country. Art and culture is a money spinner. The creative industry is huge. That we can actually use it. I will not now say that we are going to rival oil.
Oil, but at least it can be there.
Yeah, but
so
it's the new oil.
It's the new oil.
It's the new oil. That's what I will say.
Okay.
Picking it up from there, that the creative industry is the new oil. So how would you assess the state of the creative industry in Nigeria?
Okay, presently we are doing very well, but like I said, it's still at the very informal stage. Not a lot of data you could point to. And that's why we are using every platform to make sure that we get data. In fact, this present minister had established a department for cultural statistics.
Okay.
So that we can actually say, okay, these are the number of people we have, practitioners we have. These are the volume of films we have done this year. This is the thing we're exporting out of the country. We need to have those data, you know, to be able to know where we are and where we're going. So that department is there. And at the levels of the agencies, you know, both at state and federal, you know, there are efforts to make sure that we have the right data. That's why I've been screaming, well, not screaming, but I've been engaging with stakeholders, and I'm advising them, bring those works to the board for classification so that we can have data. Now I'm publishing volumes of films that have been classified by the board. It will be a thing of joy for you in the next 10 years to see a publication of your film, your name and all that. It's data for the industry. I keep saying that if UNESCO comes back to Nigeria today and say they want to conduct a survey on our production strength,
okay,
they usually will come to the board for the data.
Right.
If we present them the data of the films that come to us for classification, we may jump from second to maybe 10th or so.
Wow.
Because at the time they came, we were posting about 6,000 films a year that was submitted to us. But in the last 20 years, especially with digital space now, the number has really reduced. So we need those data to be able to know where we are as an industry. You know, we are still an industry of one movie success, one album success, one show success, and all that. I mean, look at every year we just jump at 1.8 billion. How can we be making 1.8 billion at the cinema and we have a population of 200 million people? No, it doesn't add up at all. We should do much more, you know, and then our films should be able to travel abroad. So some of those things that we need to put in place to make sure that we are accepted, not just in the continent.
We're not local champions.
No, we're not.
International standard.
International. Our films can be accepted internationally. We can fill up theaters abroad, not just select theaters and all that.
Okay.
So we're working towards making sure that. So presently, we are making steady progress, but it can be better.
It can be better. Well, as we look at the facts that we are making steady progress, and when we look at issues around national development, youth and job creation will also be one area that we cannot, you know, look away from. And we know that at the moment there are a lot of young people, especially in the music industry, that are trying out their hands in a whole lot of things. And like you said, sometimes we are comfortable with a one-hit album, and then we take the back seat until the next hit comes up. So how do we begin to harness the opportunities that we have in the sector at creating jobs, meaningful jobs, and sustaining those jobs? Is one thing to create, is one thing to also be able to sustain those jobs in the industry. So what are some of those things that we need to do?
In fact, job creation is basic in the establishment of the Federal Ministry of Arts, Culture.
Okay.
Because I mean, we're talking about creative economy now. We're just not talking about creativity for creativity's sake, but the creativity that will bring. And one of the things that you can do is to engage the people, the creators, and then provide the facility for them to be able to make money out of what they are doing. And like I mentioned earlier, I said there's a lot of effort to build capacity. Today, you were talking about music. In fact, the industry that is the biggest now is content creation industry. Everybody's creating content. Everybody, including the bars. Everybody's creating content.
Right.
But what these agencies are doing, including, I mean, the Nigerian National Council for Arts and Culture, Nigerian Film Corporation, all those agencies under the ministry are doing, is to see how they can engage with these content creators, train them, build facilities for them to try, build workstations for them to come and try. Some of these guys, if you go, you see them on the streets, you know, doing some things. We need spaces for them. We need to bring in people who work with them, you know, train them. We need to build facilities that can enable them create more than they are creating presently, you know. Some of them create these things so crudely, you know, that you'll be wondering, but they are not refined, but they are doing their best, you know, because of the things that are available to them. So all these agencies are responsible to make sure that training, you know, you build capacity, you organize them, you upskill them, you skill them up so that they can be able to make something out of the industry. And then, of course, you know, when you make something out of the industry, you put something back to the economy in terms of tax, in terms of the other things.
Let me take you up on that now. Training and upskilling. Do we have enough institutions and training programs to equip young Nigerians? We
really don't have enough compared to the population that we have. We don't have enough. And so that's why we need to be deliberate about setting up these institutions. Then accreditations have to be done, because it's not just about opening up a building, you know, and then saying that you are training people, because that's what happens most of the time. You just have somebody who has not even cranked a camera before, and he says he's setting up a film school and all that, you know. So people need to come up with those facilities, you know. Government, we also do his own. Government has a lot of institutes, like for film, we have the National Film Institute, you know, in Jos and all that, and they are setting up campuses in different parts of the country. We need to set up those facilities and encourage the private sector too to set them up, but we must make effort to accredit these agencies, so that these facilities, so that we know that they are providing the right kind of knowledge, you know, and skill, you know, to the
government will continue to play that oversight function.
We must, at every level, from states to the federal level, we must do that. I was somewhere in Ngondo yesterday, and there was this facility that I just stopped at and said I wanted to see. And I think it's a media center, and they are into animation.
Wow.
I didn't know of that kind of us. Is privately owned, and they're into animation. And animation is one area that we have not really exploited, especially for our kids, because there are so many folk stories that you can tell using animation. It's so easy for them to follow animation than to follow any other thing that you want to show them. You know, there are so many facilities, but we need to accredit them, and then we also need to provide like facilities that they can jump. You know, one of the problems they have, especially as creators, is that you can't find them, you can't tell them that you want to organize a 3-month workshop and keep them out of creation. So you must establish these facilities very close to them so that they can jump in, which is why my colleague at the Nigerian Film Corporation is building multi-campuses for the Nigerian Film Institute, so that you don't have to go to Jos. You have find one closer to you, so that you can go there, you know, skill up, you know, so that you can produce better. You know, you can't use residual knowledge forever. You need to keep skilling up, so that our products will come out, and when they come out, they know that, oh, this is from Nigeria.
Right. So again, sometimes when you talk about the creative industry, a lot of people can only identify with very few, identify with music, identify with film and acting, but there's a whole lot. There's photography, there is fashion, there is gaming. So how do we begin to ensure that we, you know, open up? There's literature, and even now there's, yes, everybody's creating content. There's the digital media at the moment. So how do we begin to ensure that, you know, the younger people see the multiple openings and not saturate just one area of, you know, the areas, because again, if we concentrate on just one of those areas or two of those areas, then we're also leaving those other areas into extinction. So how do we begin to ensure that, you know, there's a lot of diversification and a lot of openings in those other areas as seen by the younger people, so they also can tap into what those other places have to offer?
I think it's the best approach and which is what some of us have been doing, is to go to schools, is to go to universities where these young people are and let them know that there are other aspects that they can be interested in. I mean, issue of gaming, for instance, it's not like as popular as the other forms of the creative industry. You know, a lot of people are getting into it now. Animation. There was a time you can't even dare it. But now there are a lot of our young people who are doing. There is even an animation festival that holds in Lagos every year, you know, by Muyiwa Kayode and so on. So these are, the whole thing is just to sensitize them, to let them know that there are other aspects that we can go. But our best approach will be to provide some kind of incentives to provide some kind
to lure them.
Yeah, I mean, something to lure them and to tell them that, no, we can go this direction. We can't all be content creators. Everybody now wants to create content for those social media. Everybody wants to be an actor in front of the camera. We should be thinking about behind the scene and the rest. We were discussing not too long ago, and I said, if we want to have 3 big productions, maybe a production like Jagu Jagun, a production like 7 Doors, for instance, we want to have 3 of that kind of production, big project. We cannot, they can't run simultaneously. Because we have to wait for one to finish before, because of the number of resource persons that we have. Because you have, the other day I asked, how many special effects persons can I find in the industry? They were mentioning the same person to me.
Akim, I'm sure.
Akim. It's Akim that will run from this epic set to this set to this set.
And that's dangerous, really, because again, because I know that there are a lot of, sorry, Joy, I know that there are a lot of people who also believe that, believe in train the trainers and do not really want to go to the 4 walls of a school to go and learn these things. They want to learn on the job. They want to be apprenticed to somebody who's already big. And so when, with what you've mentioned, when you have just one name, you mentioned this person, should those people also not be making deliberate effort at creating more people off their own back, so that at least there will be somebody or some other people that will succeed them at the end of the day, because they can't be there forever.
That's the very important thing that you raised. What we lack also is this mentorship stuff. No one wants to be mentored. They want to just do one project and then tomorrow maybe one blog will just write them veteran or legend. In fact, sometimes
they don't want to go through this
when I read those things, I just, how is this man a legend?
I guess those writing it do not even know the meaning of legend.
How is this man a veteran? How is this man a notable?
What has he done?
A notable. Sometimes when I read these things, I say, how do they qualify these people like this?
Right.
So a lot of them, they just do one project and then they jump. But mentorship is a lot of us got to where we are through mentorship. We found somebody, or somebody identified us, and then moved us, and then trained us and got us to where we are. We missed a lot of that with our old generation. You know, but now that we are so many of us in the industry, and I like what some people, practitioners are doing. They are training others. Somebody like Nii Akim-Olayan. Sorry, I'm mentioning your name.
That's fine.
But he's one person who is building capacity. You know, he has raised the number of people in different areas with his Ant-Hill studio and all that. And there are a lot of other people. So people like Akim, people like Nodash, who are #1 cinematographers that we have in the country, Pindem Lot and the rest, they should make deliberate effort to mentor others. The mentorship should be something that is well established in the industry. And our young people, don't be too in a rush to blow. You know, have someone that you understudy, intend properly. Don't do what some people are doing. You ask them to be mechanics today. They are intending as mechanics. Oga is dozing somewhere. Somebody breaks a car. They decide to repair. No, it doesn't work with the creative industry.
We had this conversation yesterday, still talking about the creative industry, and my guest yesterday was saying that, because I raised the issue of mentorship, and he said it is not that the young ones don't want to be mentored, that they don't have access to these people. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just that the young people don't want to be mentored. They want to be mentored, but they can't have access to these people. So I also want your reaction on that.
No, they will have access. It depends on what you are, what level of mentorship or your relationship with the mentor. There are some of them, they will say, okay, come, let me mentor you. It's another thing that they are looking for. It's another thing entirely. I don't want to even go into those details. I have a lot of people who write to me and say, I want you to mentor me. But they are coming to me because maybe as a lecturer, because if they say I'm your mentee, I will influence Mark, or they find that maybe I have some money, I will give them money for something. You are learning under me, and then you're asking me to pay you professional fee. No. I mean, it doesn't work like that.
Again, just
so it
like
depends on what.
Said.
There are a lot of people, I know a lot of people in the industry who are picking up people and saying, come learn mentor. But these young people, a lot of them are not patient. A lot of them just want to blow.
Perhaps they also do not really understand what mentorship is really all about. Perhaps their own idea of mentorship is different from what mentorship really is all about. Because like you said, and it's like it is in every industry, you must learn by the ropes, and you can't do one thing and you assume that you've learned already. And so sometimes again it depends on what they exactly are looking for, but like you said. But it also again, still talking about mentee and mentorship, as much as we say there are mentors out there and the young people can have access to, there's also a level of commitment that should come from the mentees themselves. Because again, if you're not mentoring in love, if you're not mentoring with the aim of, holding this person by their hands, because again, there are sometimes that a mentor is also not quite open to, mentoring you. As much as you blame the young person, we also should talk to the adults who are mentoring. So if you're mentoring, mentor well. And then mentor like you should actually mentor, and not mentor like they're forcing themselves on you. Because again, sometimes when you meet those people, it's not always easy to go ahead,
In fact, you should be proud of saying, I mentored this person. I was reading a book on TK. It's not published yet, but I was reading it and I saw that he was saying that, Kunle, I've mentored him, That's someone who is proud of bringing up somebody in the industry. And I'm sure Kunle has mentored a lot of people. But there was a time I even asked him a question, and I pointed to one guy and I said, this guy told me that you mentored this. Which guy? This lazy person. Because they just want to be in front of the camera. They want to call they want to sit down the directing chair when they are just intending, And a guy is supposed to tell you, okay, go and do this, because he knows your competence and all that. So our young ones need to be patient, and then our older ones need to be open to it. Don't think that you will take your knowledge to anywhere. Pass it on so that we can grow a lot of people who will be you. It's not a thing of pride to know that we have only one effect person or two effect people or three effect people. In an industry that we have so many films, no, we should not be able to count the number of people we have,
But Dr. Shoaib, something just struck me while you were speaking now, and I think it's best we also talk about it. Do we also have a problem with producers and directors who also do not want to experiment with new hands? Because again, there are people who've learned on the job, but of course, because their names are not there, and you would say things like, don't come and spoil my work, or I'd rather work with a name that I know. At what point do we also need to start allowing the young people or, the trainees to also prove their mettle?
I think those who say that, I don't want to use someone that is new, maybe the person does not understand the work that the person has done previously. So it also means that those people who are intending presently, they must make sure that they put out their works. They must have a profile.
Their work.
Yes, they must have a profile. A lot of them don't even have anything about their profile. They just work and continue to work, and you ask them,
what have you done?
I did this film. No, you should have something. You should have a simple website, so that if you come and meet me and say you want to be a DOP on my set, I go. You must have an IMDb page. So I just go there and I say, okay, you shot this, you shot this. I mean, I was looking at the profile of a scriptwriter, and I was surprised that she wrote all this. If I had not asked her association, for instance, that I need her to help me mentor some young people.
Okay.
I wouldn't have known that she was the one who wrote this and all that. So they must put the information out. They must, I mean, you must sell yourself. And the only way that I know that you can sell yourself is to put your work out there for people to see. I don't see any reason why you are a production person and you don't have a simple one-page website for yourself or something on social media about yourself. You put it out. I have a lot of young people come to me. I have a script to sell. I have to put it up there on social media that you have written. Maybe put a log line there. One of these people, we call your attention to it. I was listening to Aresta the other day, and she told me how she got to Don Jazzy also, or how she was, how they identified her and all that. You know, you must put yourself out there. If you just go there and say, oh, I want to be there, and they ask you, what work
have you done?
You cannot show. There must be, you must have something to show for it. And I actually want to appeal to our filmmakers to be open to some of these people. You know, if you don't try someone, you won't know. You won't know. How did, I mean, people like Genevieve Nnaji didn't just jump up and become superstars today. Somebody gave them an opportunity. So they must try and build new stars so that they can take the credit for exposing this. Sometimes I read the papers and I see I was the one who gave her the platform.
The
I was the one, my hair. And each time when I interview some of these celebrities, the first thing I ask them, which was your first movie? How did you get on the set? You know, said, no, they just gave me the script I read, and then they said I could do it, and then I get there. So they should be open to trying new hands so that we don't over-labor the old ones. Sorry,
Joy, from what you've just said now, I've also, a couple of Nigerians would also say that Nigerians are very, you can't please Nigerians. For some producers or from some directors who would also try new faces on their work, you hear things like, why are you using faces that we don't know? And those movies may also not get good viewership or ratings on some of the socials, especially those who use the YouTube at the moment. So how do we also speak to the fact that, how do we try new hands if the viewers themselves are not open to new faces? How then do you discover new talents?
Nigeria is a very sensitive, it's a very
complex
industry. You know, you really cannot tell what story you can make that will hit, you know, that they will like, especially the audience. The audience, I think now the trend is that you must be something of an influencer, you know, and all that. And I think one actress was saying today that why should she be dancing up and down and be doing, or have so many following to be able to act? Because now it's like the consideration is that you must have a lot of following on social media to be able to considered for a role. And the assumption is that the more followers you have, they'll come to her. But that I have not, well, I mean, it's still open to studies. But I know that one of the biggest actresses, who is also a producer, has a lot of following on social media. But I have calculated that following and put it against the money she makes from the cinema. And I found that it does not correlate. But if you have all of them who follow her on social media actually come to watch the films, she'll be selling.
Cashing out.
She'll be cashing out steadily. So, I mean, they should give people opportunities to try. All this thing about, oh, you must be an influencer to be able to act. That's why sometimes you see the quality of acting. It has really dropped, especially in some of these films that are released online, you know, because they just pick up anybody with who that looks good and all that and give them roles to play. But that does not also mean that some of them have not actually, you know, tried, you know, in their own way to be able. So we must look for a way to balance this. You know, we must not, in trying to please the audience, we must also try to make sure that we give our best foot out, you know, forward. You know.
All right, this question is like a concern. Now, we are talking about positioning ourselves as a film industry now, positioning ourselves on the international scene. But you have some of these international platforms that have some kind of standards that does not align with our culture. I don't want to mention names, but someone was saying this thing yesterday, that you would have to, some platforms will say you must have nude scenes and all that. So how do we balance it now when we want to place ourselves on that international space? How do we balance it and still preserve our culture?
It's the choices that you make as a director and as a producer. I have seen a producer that they have insisted that there must be a sex scene. She wrote a story, and the context of the story is that the person can bare their body or the person can have a sex scene in the film. But when, during edits and so on, the choice that she made was that if I make this film that way, there will be a problem. For instance, there is a film, I don't want to mention, but there's a film where there were people bearing their am I allowed to say breast?
Well, it's in the morning. Okay, bearing the upper part of their bodies.
Okay, thank you. Upper part of their body. And then, but the context in which that story was made will allow that, will permit that. So that's understandable. Then there was a scene where the Oba and the slave were making out. And in that scene, the director was very quick at just establishing that act. But he didn't stay there like some other people will want to stay and all that. So it's the choice of the producer and the director to know what to offer, considering our environment, considering our culture, and considering what is permissible here. I mean, they cannot force you to make a film like same-sex film.
Right, here.
You can't do here because you tell them outrightly that the law will not allow this. And then if I make this kind of film, this is the kind of rating I'm going to get. And if I'm taking it to the cinema, there will be a problem. You know, that's why the practitioners too are so careful now. When they make films, they'll make films that they can allow people that are like from 12 years to come to the cinema to watch.
And it will be classified.
And yes, classified. But if it is 18, those people, those category of audience will not be able to see the film. So they are very, I think it calls for a lot of responsibility on the part of the filmmakers. They must be aware of their environment. Yes, the producer can tell you, okay, do this, but it is on your own part to know how to deliver that product. It's like this thing they say, the man gives you a message to go and deliver. You know how to deliver the message eventually, so that you don't run foul of the law. You know?
But is it possible that in such a production you also make, because some people also doctor what the show at the home front and what is permissible internationally. So sometimes what they can watch here can take away some of those scenes, and then if it's to be open to the international audience, then they can see some other parts of it. Is that also allowed here?
Yes, it is. Once you are aware, there are some contents that are restricted in certain territories. You know, so if you can have that cut, like when they had the Passion of Christ, there were a lot of versions for different territories.
Regions, yes.
There was one version that was completely in black and white, because that territory does not like to see any blood stain, anything that is reddish. They don't want on anybody. So they made it black and white. So there are versions like that. It's just like even in music. There is popular play, there's club play. There's the ones that you play inside the club, and there's the one that you can play on radio and you can pass. So it's permissible.
Right. Time is fast spent, but before we allow you go, let's quickly go back to national branding and the creative industry vis-a-vis national development. What again are we looking at here, especially when we talk about festivals, talk about annual events? What are we looking at here in Nigeria?
There's a lot. In fact, I think my colleague at the National Council for Arts and Culture, they are trying to put up a list.
Would that be like a calendar?
Like a calendar of festivals. They are also they want to document all the festivals that we have in the country, put dates to them. Then they will now have a calendar of those ones that are very consistent, so that people can always look forward to it, you know, and all that. Then the other one that they are also trying to do is to see how they can, you know, support some of those festivals, you know, open them up so that we can attract people from, you know, tourists, different parts of the world. I understand that, I know, not even I understand that the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, which is an agency under the Federal Ministry of Arts, they are planning a World Orisha Day. Oh, you know,
I'm sure that'll be around August.
It's the first time it's going to happen, and it's going to get into that calendar. And I already know that some Brazilian there are Brazilians,
Cubans,
some Cubans, some Mexicans have started making inquiries about it. And if that happens, then you know that for every year, you know, we are going to have them come into this country, you know, to come and experience culture at its very best. So they are working on a calendar for festivals, and I know that the NCC is on top of that matter.
Okay, we'd have to leave this conversation here this morning. It's always a delight to have you here, Dr. Shuaib. Thank you for finding time to be here on the program today. But we've been speaking with the DG, National Film and Video Censors Board, and he's taking us through what we all can do as Nigerians at, you know, harnessing the creative industry and national development. We'll take a quick break. When we return, our second conversation will be here.
Wow, thank you.